Listen, lock your doors, silence your notifications, and sit all the way down because what I am about to walk you through is not just a moment in hip-hop. This is a seismic event. This is the kind of tremor that reshuffles the entire landscape. Remy Ma just detonated a lyrical warhead on the radar radio, and I need every single one of you to understand the magnitude of what just transpired. Because this is not simply a freestyle. This is not merely a verse. This is a full-blown declaration of supremacy from a woman who the entire industry tried to write off, tried to bury, tried to pretend never existed. And she just walked into the booth, looked every doubter dead in the face, and delivered what might be the most annihilating 2 minutes and 41 seconds of pure uncut lyricism we have witnessed in the last half-decade. You are not prepared. I was not prepared. Nobody was prepared. Now, before we even dissect what Remy actually articulated on this record, I need to set the table for you because the context here is absolutely critical. Some of you might be tuning in fresh, might not have been following the trajectory, might not understand why this particular appearance on this particular platform at this particular juncture carries so much gravitational weight. So allow me to lay the groundwork. On the Radar has been ascending for a minute now, ever since the Chris Patrick era began, and they started hosting those legendary freestyle sessions and open mic ciphers. The platform has been climbing. They have been cultivating a space where real artistry gets spotlighted, where genuine pen game gets the respect it deserves. And what they have built is not some overnight gimmick. This is a legitimate proving ground. When you step onto On the Radar, you are stepping into a coliseum. There are no safety nets. There are no auto-tune crutches. There is no studio magic to hide behind. It is just you, the microphone, and whatever ammunition you brought in your cranium. And Remy Ma walked into that coliseum like a gladiator returning from exile. Now, here is where it gets absolutely nuclear. Because the whispers had been building for weeks. People in the circles, people with their ears to the pavement, folks who actually pay attention to the undercurrents of the culture. They had been murmuring. They had been saying, hold on, something is brewing. Remy has been in the lab. Remy has been sharpening. Remy is about to resurface. And I will be honest with you, when those whispers first reached my orbit, I paused. I hesitated, because we have all seen artists attempt comebacks. We have all witnessed the premature resurrection tour where somebody emerges from obscurity, drops something mediocre, and then retreats back into the shadows. That is a pattern we recognize. That is a cycle the industry recycles. But this? What Remy just executed. This is not a comeback. This is an overthrow. This is a hostile takeover of every conversation happening in hip-hop right now. And I need to walk you through it piece by piece, syllable by syllable, because every single line in this freestyle is loaded with intention, loaded with venom, loaded with a precision that only somebody who has lived through warfare and emerged victorious can manufacture. So let us start from the genesis. The moment the beat dropped and Remy opened her vocal cords, you could feel the atmospheric shift. You could sense it immediately. This was not going to be some throwaway performance. This was not going to be some pleasant little exhibition of skill. From the very first cadence, from the initial breath she took before launching into the assault, the energy was different. It was predatory. It was calculated. It was the energy of a lioness who has been watching her territory get encroached upon and finally decided that patience has expired. And then she delivered the opening salvo. She established her position in the hierarchy with absolute clarity. She made it unmistakably known that she occupies the throne, that she is not some mid-tier participant in this arena. She is the enterprise. She is the institution. She is the empire unto herself. And while certain individuals out here are bartering cosmetic procedures in exchange for promotional consideration, while certain people are literally trading surgical alterations for visibility and clout, she is operating on an entirely different altitude. She is navigating the industry from the executive suite, while others are begging for admission at the lobby entrance. Now, I need you to sit with that for a moment, because the implications of what she communicated are staggering. She essentially looked at an entire generation of artists who have been relying on manufactured imagery, who have been depending on aesthetic modifications to compensate for their deficiency in actual talent, and she said, I see you. I see exactly what you are doing. And it is pitiful. You are negotiating cosmetic enhancements in exchange for promotional platforms. That is your currency. That is your bargaining chip. While I am constructing empires with nothing but the syllables that exit my throat. And the delivery, the precision with which she threaded that needle, it was surgical. It was not screamed. It was not shouted with aggression for the sake of aggression. It was stated with the calm authority of someone who does not need to raise their volume because the words themselves carry all the detonation required. That is mastery. That is what separates a lyricist from a performer. A performer needs the stage. A lyricist only needs the language. But she was not finished. Not even remotely. Because what came next escalated the severity by multiple orders of magnitude. She pivoted to address the individuals who have been orbiting her existence, who have been gravitating toward her relevance like moths drawn to illumination. And she made the observation that these people are fundamentally competing with their own reflections. They are locked in a rivalry with themselves, and they do not even possess the self-awareness to recognize it. They are manufacturing feuds and fabricating conflicts with someone who does not even register their existence on the peripheral radar. Let me contextualize why that is so devastating. In the economy of hip-hop, attention is the supreme currency. It is the oxygen that sustains careers. And what Remy effectively communicated is that these individuals are so far beneath her operational altitude that the rivalry they believe exists is entirely one-directional. It is a phantom conflict. They are shadowboxing. They are swinging at vapor. And meanwhile, she is not even spectating. She is occupied with endeavors so far beyond their comprehension that their attempts to provoke her are functionally invisible. That is not just a lyrical demolition. That is a psychological annihilation. Because when you strip someone of even the acknowledgement that a competition exists, you have removed the final shred of relevance they were clinging to. You have erased them from the narrative entirely. And Remy accomplished that with a handful of syllables delivered over a smooth, understated instrumental. Now, let me transition to what I consider the centerpiece of this entire performance, because this is where the temperature in the room shifted from heated to absolutely volcanic. She made a direct, unflinching, unmistakable reference to the ghostwriting allegations that have been circulating through the industry like a low-grade fever that nobody wanted to diagnose. She called it out explicitly. She identified a specific individual, and I think we all know the direction she was aiming that artillery, who has been parading around accepting accolades and absorbing credit for creative output that they never actually produced. The ghostwriting conversation has been simmering in hip-hop for years, decades even. But it always gets discussed in hushed tones, in coded language, in indirect implications. Nobody wants to be the one to point the finger directly because the repercussions are severe. Careers get dismantled when the ghostwriting curtain gets pulled back. Legacies crumble. The entire mythology that an artist has constructed around their genius evaporates the moment the world discovers that genius was leased from someone else. And Remy just ripped that curtain down with her bare hands on a live platform in front of the entire culture. She stated plainly that a certain individual has been claiming authorship of compositions that they never scribed for anybody. Not for her. Not for any other artist. Their entire portfolio of alleged creative contributions is a fabrication. A fiction. An elaborate performance of competence that has no foundation in reality. Now, I want you to think about the audacity required to make that accusation in that setting. This is not a subliminal. This is not a coded reference that requires a decoder ring to interpret. This is a direct, frontal, daylight assault on someone's professional integrity. And in hip-hop, where authenticity is supposedly the bedrock principle, where the entire culture was supposedly constructed on the foundation of keeping it genuine, an accusation of ghostwriting is the equivalent of a nuclear detonation. It does not just damage, it obliterates. And what makes it even more catastrophic is the source. Because Remy is not some outsider lobbing accusations from the periphery. She is not some emerging voice trying to generate controversy for visibility. She is a decorated veteran. She is a lyrical architect whose credentials are indisputable. When Remy Ma tells you somebody did not write their own material, that statement carries a weight that cannot be dismissed or deflected. It lands with the gravitational force of absolute credibility. So here we are. The ghostwriting grenades have been lobbed. The detonation has occurred. And the fallout is going to be extraordinary. Because now every single verse, every single song, every single collaborative credit that individual has ever claimed is going to be re-examined under a microscope. The public is going to go back through the entire discography with fresh suspicion. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it does not require water. It grows on its own. It feeds itself. It metastasizes until it consumes the entire reputation. But Remy was not content with merely incinerating one target. She was operating in scorched earth mode. She was clearing the entire field. Because she then transitioned into a segment that I can only describe as a masterclass in competitive annihilation. She began addressing the pretenders, the aspirants, the individuals who have been positioning themselves as contenders in a weight class they have absolutely no business occupying. She made the distinction crystal clear. When these other individuals approach a microphone, what emerges is merely a collection of rhyming syllables arranged in a somewhat pleasing pattern. It is decoration. It is ornamental. It functions as background noise. But when she approaches that same microphone, what materializes is currency. It is value. It is 10 out of 10. Every single time. Without exception. Without fluctuation. Without a single off night in the entire catalog. That is not confidence. That is statistical reality. And she reinforced that reality by cataloging her reach, her influence, her omnipresence across every stratum of the culture. She is embedded in every environment. Every borough. Every coast. Every community. Every crew. Every faction. She does not discriminate. She does not confine herself to a single lane or a singular identity. She is simultaneously the sophisticate on the luxury vessel and the general in the trenches. She occupies every coordinate on the cultural map simultaneously, and she does so with an effortlessness that makes the rest of the field look like they are struggling to locate their own position. Now, there is a particular sequence in this freestyle that I need to isolate and elevate because it is, without exaggeration, one of the most brilliantly constructed couplets I have heard from any artist, male or female, in the modern era. She addressed the concept of being subjected to indirect commentary, to passive-aggressive subliminals, to the cowardly practice of referencing someone without possessing the courage to actually invoke their identity directly. And she flipped it magnificently. She acknowledged that yes, she might receive the indirect treatment. People might aim their passive shots in her general direction. But here is the critical distinction she drew. Those shots never make contact. They never penetrate. They never leave a mark. She exists in a realm of absolute invulnerability where the attacks of lesser opponents simply cannot breach the perimeter. The smoke that gets directed at her, it dissipates before it arrives. It evaporates in transit. It lacks the density, the substance, the potency to even register as a genuine threat. And then the capstone, the crowning declaration that will echo through this summer and likely beyond. She posed the question that nobody was prepared to answer. She issued the ultimate challenge to every individual who has been harboring animosity, who has been nursing grudges in private, who has been typing subliminals from behind protective screens. She asked them directly, if you carry hostility toward me, if you have accumulated grievances against me, then articulate it. Pronounce my name, invoke my identity, step forward out of the anonymity, and declare your position publicly. And then the question that will haunt every silent adversary she possesses. Are you timid? Are you frightened? Is that the reason for the silence? Is that why the names never get spoken directly? Is that why the confrontations always occur through intermediaries and innuendo rather than face-to-face declarations? That single question, are you timid, is going to become the defining phrase of this entire season. It is going to be repurposed, recycled, embedded in every conversation about lyrical courage and competitive integrity for months to come. Because it strips away every layer of pretense. It removes every excuse. It leaves the target standing naked in the public square with only two options. Respond with equivalent firepower or admit, through silence, that the fear is authentic. Now, I want to zoom out for a moment and address the broader significance of what just occurred. Because this is not merely about Remy Ma delivering an exceptional freestyle. This is about the state of hip-hop itself. This is about the ongoing conversation around who actually possesses the ability to construct language into weaponry versus who is simply performing a simulation of that ability. For years, the discourse has been polluted by the elevation of mediocrity. The platforms have been saturated with artists who prioritize image over substance, who invest more resources into their visual presentation than their lyrical development, who have essentially reduced the art form to a karaoke exercise where the appearance of skill is valued more highly than the presence of skill. And the culture has, to some degree, been complicit in that erosion. We have rewarded the simulation. We have celebrated the counterfeit. We have allowed the standards to deteriorate to a point where actual excellence almost feels foreign when it surfaces. And then someone like Remy Ma walks into the booth, and in 2 minutes and 41 seconds reminds every single participant in this ecosystem what the standard actually looks like. She recalibrates the entire measuring system. She reestablishes the benchmark that the culture has been slowly abandoning. And she does it not with spectacle, not with gimmicks, not with manufactured controversy, but with the most fundamental element of the art form, words. Arranged with intelligence, delivered with authority, aimed with devastating accuracy. That is what genuine artistry looks like. That is what it sounds like. And that is why the reaction to this freestyle has been what it has been. Because the culture was starving. The audience was famished for something real, something substantive, something that did not require social media theatrics or influencer cosigns to validate its quality. They were waiting for somebody to simply walk up to the microphone and remind them why they fell in love with this art form in the first place. And Remy delivered that reminder with the force of a Category 5 hurricane. I want to emphasize something here that I think is profoundly important. We live in an era where the algorithm dictates visibility, where the metrics determine who gets platformed and who gets buried, where an artist's worth is measured not by the quality of their artistry, but by the velocity of their engagement numbers. And within that system, genuine lyrical excellence is systematically disadvantaged because it requires attention. It demands that the listener invest cognitive effort. It asks the audience to think, to interpret, to decode layers of meaning rather than passively consume a sonic product designed for the shortest possible attention span. And yet, despite every structural disadvantage that the current ecosystem imposes on artists who prioritize substance over spectacle, Remy Ma just dominated the conversation. She just seized the attention of the entire culture without compromising a single syllable of her artistic integrity. She did not dumb it down. She did not water it down. She did not streamline her complexity to accommodate an audience that might not be equipped to receive it. She delivered at the apex of her capability and trusted the audience to rise to meet her at that altitude. And the audience responded by elevating this freestyle to the most discussed musical moment of the entire week. Now, let me address something that I think a lot of people are going to try to minimize or deflect. There are going to be those who attempt to dismiss this as simply a woman beefing, as merely an artist taking shots at rivals for attention, as nothing more than a provocative stunt designed to generate clicks and commentary. And I want to preemptively dismantle that framing because it is fundamentally dishonest. What Remy accomplished on this platform transcends the petty dynamics of personal conflict. Yes, there are specific individuals who are clearly in the crosshairs. Yes, there are identifiable targets embedded within the bars. But the broader achievement here is the reassertion of a standard. It is the reestablishment of what lyrical excellence demands. It is a public demonstration that the skills required to genuinely dominate this art form are not extinct, they have simply been dormant, waiting for the right vessel to bring them surging back to the surface. And Remy is that vessel. She has always been that vessel. But the culture has an extraordinarily short memory, and the industry has a vested interest in amnesia. They want you to forget. They want the new generation to believe that what they are being served is the pinnacle. They want you to accept that the diluted, processed, artificially flavored product they are distributing is the genuine article. Because maintaining that illusion is profitable. Challenging that illusion is dangerous. And what Remy just did is the most dangerous thing an artist can do in the current landscape. She proved that the illusion is exactly that. An illusion. Let me circle back to the specific craft on display, because there are technical elements within this freestyle that deserve forensic examination. The multisyllabic rhyme scheme she employed are not accidental constructions. They are engineered with architectural precision. Every internal rhyme, every slant rhyme, every rhythmic variation serves a deliberate purpose. She does not waste syllables. She does not pad lines with filler. Every single word in this composition earns its placement through either phonetic contribution, semantic weight, or rhythmic function. Often all three simultaneously. Take the section where she addresses the disparity between authentic accomplishment and manufactured perception. She weaves together references to financial independence, physical confidence, intellectual superiority, and cultural dominance into a seamless tapestry where each thread reinforces the others. The imagery she deploys is not decorative. It is structural. Each metaphor supports the overarching thesis. Each comparison illuminates a different facet of the same central argument. This is not stream of consciousness freestyle. This is premeditated lyrical architecture of the highest caliber. And the cadence shifts. My goodness, the cadence shifts. She transitions between flows with the fluidity of a musician, moving between time signatures. One moment she is locked into a rapid-fire staccato delivery that mimics the urgency of a battle rapper in competition. The next moment she settles into a melodic pocket that demonstrates she could occupy the R and B adjacent lane if she chose to. And then she accelerates again, pushing the tempo to a velocity that forces the listener to concentrate, to lean in, to dedicate their full cognitive bandwidth to processing the information being transmitted at an almost overwhelming rate. That is mastery of the medium. That is a demonstration of control that most artists never achieve regardless of how many years they invest in the craft. And Remy makes it look effortless. She makes it appear as natural as breathing, which, if you understand the mechanics of what she is actually executing in real time, makes the achievement even more staggering. Now, I want to address the platform itself because On the Radar deserves significant credit for what they have cultivated. They have constructed an environment where this caliber of performance is not just possible, but expected. The artists who step onto that platform understand that they are walking into a space with no tolerance for mediocrity. The audience that consumes On the Radar content has been conditioned to expect excellence. And that elevation of expectation creates a feedback loop where artists bring their absolute finest because they know that anything less will be immediately recognized and rejected. This is what the culture needs more of. We need more platforms that refuse to lower the threshold. We need more spaces where the only currency that matters is skill. Not followers, not streaming numbers, not brand deals or sponsorship agreements. Just raw, undeniable, incontestable skill. And On the Radar has positioned itself as the premier proving ground for exactly that. The fact that they continue to attract artists of Remy's magnitude, that they continue to serve as the launching pad for career-defining moments like this one, speaks to the integrity of what they have built. Chris Patrick and the entire On the Radar collective have essentially constructed the modern equivalent of the legendary hip-hop radio freestyles that defined previous generations. They have given artists a stage where the only thing that matters is what you can do with words and rhythm and a microphone. And in an era that is drowning in artifice, that purity is revolutionary. Let me also take a moment to discuss the production choice because the instrumental she performed over was deceptively simple. It was a smooth, understated canvas that could have easily lulled a lesser artist into a comfort zone, into a laid-back, low-intensity delivery. But Remy used that restraint in the production to her advantage. She treated the minimalism of the beat like negative space in a painting. The sparseness of the instrumental made every word she deposited on top of it resonate with amplified impact. There was nowhere to hide. There were no sonic distractions to mask imperfections. Every syllable existed in high definition, and every syllable was flawless. That is a testament to her confidence. Only an artist who is supremely assured of their capability would choose to perform over a production that offers zero camouflage. A lesser MC would have demanded something busier, something louder, something that could provide cover for the deficiencies in their delivery. Remy demanded clarity. She demanded transparency. She wanted the audience to hear every consonant, every vowel, every breath, every inflection. Because she knew that under that level of scrutiny, she would not only survive but dominate. And let me draw a parallel here because I think it illuminates something essential about her character. The greatest athletes in history do not seek out opponents who will make them look superior by comparison. They seek out the fiercest competition available because they understand that true greatness is only validated under maximum duress. The championship is not won against the weakest challenger. It is won against the opponent who presents the greatest existential threat. And Remy applied that same philosophy to this freestyle. She did not select a production that would flatter her. She selected a production that would test her. She chose the instrumental equivalent of an open ring with no ropes, no corner, no referee, and she stepped in knowing that every flaw, every hesitation, every imperfection would be magnified tenfold by the transparency of the sonic environment. And she emerged without a single blemish. Not a stumble, not a filler word, not a wasted breath. And dominate she did. Now, the aftermath of this freestyle is going to be fascinating to observe, because there are people who have been named, either directly or through implication, so transparent it functions as direct identification. And those people are now faced with an impossible decision matrix. Do they respond? And if so, with what? Because the bar that Remy has established is so astronomically high that anything less than an equivalent display of lyrical devastation will be perceived as confirmation of every accusation she leveled. It will be interpreted as an admission of inferiority. Or do they remain silent? And if so, the silence itself becomes the loudest possible confirmation. Because in hip-hop, silence in the face of a direct challenge is universally interpreted as capitulation. It is the white flag. It is the acknowledgement that the opponent possesses weaponry you cannot match. And once that perception takes root in the public consciousness, it becomes the permanent record. So you see the elegance of what Remy has engineered. She has constructed a scenario where every possible response from her targets results in a favorable outcome for her. Respond poorly and you confirm her dominance. Respond with silence and you confirm her dominance. The only escape route would be to deliver something genuinely superior, and based on the catalog of evidence available, the probability of that occurring is infinitesimally small. That is strategic brilliance. That is not just lyrical talent. That is tactical intelligence applied to competitive dynamics at the highest level. She has not just won the battle. She has designed the battlefield itself, so that victory was the only possible outcome before the first word was even spoken. And I want you to appreciate the sophistication of that engineering because it is extraordinarily rare. Most artists in hip-hop operate on impulse. They react. They retaliate. They fire back with whatever ammunition happens to be available in the moment. But Remy did not react. She orchestrated. She choreographed. She mapped out every possible response trajectory and preemptively neutralized each one before her opponents even had the opportunity to formulate their strategy. That is not a rapper making a freestyle. That is a grandmaster executing a checkmate sequence that was calculated 17 moves in advance. Let me talk about the cultural timing of this, because it is not coincidental. The ghostwriting discourse has been escalating across the entire industry for the past several weeks. Multiple artists have been implicated. Multiple credibility structures have been challenged. The entire ecosystem is in a state of heightened sensitivity around questions of authenticity and creative ownership. And into that volatile environment, Remy introduces the most explosive ghostwriting accusation of them all, directed at someone whose entire public persona is constructed around the mythology of creative partnership and lyrical collaboration. The timing is impeccable, because the audience was already primed. The conversation was already activated. The cultural immune system was already on high alert for exactly this kind of revelation. And Remy stepped into that existing current and amplified it by a factor of 1,000. She did not create the conversation. She hijacked it. She redirected its trajectory toward the target she had already selected. And now the conversation belongs to her. That is media mastery. That is an understanding of cultural dynamics that goes beyond musical talent. That is a sophisticated comprehension of how narratives function, how public discourse flows, how attention can be captured, directed, and weaponized with surgical precision if you understand the mechanics well enough. And clearly, Remy understands those mechanics better than anyone currently operating in this space. I also want to draw attention to something that might get overlooked in the immediate frenzy of reaction content. There is a vulnerability woven into this freestyle that makes it even more powerful. When she references her origins, when she alludes to the economic circumstances of her formative years, when she anchors her current altitude in the reality of where she began, she is doing something that most artists avoid. She is admitting that the journey was not glamorous. She is acknowledging that the foundation was not constructed from privilege or advantage. She is telling the audience that every single thing she possesses was extracted from nothing through sheer force of will, determination, and talent. And that honesty, that willingness to be transparent about the struggle, amplifies the impact of every boast that follows. Because when she declares her superiority, it is not the superiority of someone who was handed advantages. It is the superiority of someone who earned every molecule of their position through combat. And the audience recognizes that authenticity. They can feel the difference between a boast that is rooted in experience and a boast that is rooted in fabrication. Remy's declarations land with the weight they do because every listener intuitively understands that they are backed by receipts that no amount of revisionist narrative can erase. Now, I know some of you are sitting there wondering about the specific individual who is catching the brunt of this lyrical bombardment. And look, I am not going to spell it out for you because honestly, Remy did not leave much ambiguity to work with. The references are transparent. The implications are unmistakable. And if you have been following the history, if you understand the personal dynamics, if you have any familiarity whatsoever with the backstory between these parties, then you already know exactly who is standing in the blast radius, right now desperately hoping the shrapnel does not sever something vital. What I will say is this: the allegations she raised, the specific claims she embedded within those bars, these are not throwaway provocations. These are the kind of accusations that demand a response not just from the individual, but potentially from the entire infrastructure that has been sustaining that individual's narrative. Because if what Remy articulated is accurate, and she delivered it with the conviction of someone who possesses documentary evidence, then we are not just talking about a diss track. We are talking about the unraveling of an entire mythology. We are talking about the exposure of a fraud so comprehensive that it recontextualizes everything the public has been led to believe about that person's contributions to the culture. And that is terrifying for the people involved. Because mythologies, once they begin to fracture, do not crack slowly. They shatter. They disintegrate. They collapse under the accumulated weight of all the deceptions that were required to maintain the illusion. And once the rubble settles, there is no reconstruction possible. You cannot rebuild a mythology that has been publicly demolished. You can only attempt to construct a new one, and the audience will never extend the same level of trust to the replacement. So the stakes here are existential. This is not about pride. This is not about saving face in a momentary exchange. This is about whether an entire career survives the exposure that Remy just initiated. And based on the ferocity, the specificity, and the confidence with which she delivered these allegations, I do not think she launched this offensive without the ammunition to sustain it through multiple rounds. Which means the follow-up is going to be extraordinary, because Remy has positioned herself as someone who has more to reveal. The freestyle itself is merely the opening statement. It is the preliminary hearing. The full trial has not yet commenced. And if her targets are intelligent, they will recognize that responding recklessly will only accelerate the discovery process. Every rebuttal they offer will be met with an escalation. Every defense they mount will be dismantled with additional evidence. She has engineered this confrontation to function as a multi-phase campaign, and what we witnessed on the radar is merely phase one. I am telling you right now, this summer is about to be absolutely incendiary. The dominoes that Remy just tipped over are going to cascade through the industry in ways that nobody can fully predict. Collaborations are going to be re-examined. Credits are going to be scrutinized. Relationships are going to fracture under the pressure of public accountability. And at the center of all of it will be Remy Ma, standing with the composure of someone who set the fire deliberately and is perfectly content watching it consume everything in its trajectory. Let me bring this back to the fundamental takeaway, because I do not want the magnitude of this moment to get diluted by the inevitable noise that is going to surround it. What Remy Ma demonstrated on the radar radio is that lyricism, real lyricism, the kind that requires intelligence and courage and technical mastery and emotional depth, is not obsolete. It is not extinct. It is not a relic of a previous era. It is alive. It is potent. And when wielded by someone who has spent a lifetime perfecting its deployment, it remains the most formidable weapon in all of music. She did not need a viral dance challenge. She did not need a trending sound. She did not need a celebrity cosign or a controversy manufactured by a management team. She needed a microphone and 2 minutes and 41 seconds. And with those modest resources, she produced a moment that the entire culture is going to be discussing, dissecting, and debating for the remainder of this year and possibly beyond. That is power. That is legacy. That is the difference between an artist and a phenomenon. Artists create content. Phenomena create turning points. And what Remy Ma just created is an inflection point in the ongoing story of hip-hop that will be referenced in every conversation about lyrical excellence from this day forward. So here is what I need from every single person absorbing these words right now. I need you to go experience that freestyle if you have not already. I need you to sit with it. I need you to absorb every syllable, every cadence shift, every layered reference, every devastating implication. I need you to study it the way you would study a masterpiece in any other artistic discipline, because that is precisely what it is. It is a masterwork, and it deserves the reverence that masterworks command. And then I need you to have the conversation. I need you to engage with the community about what you witnessed. I need you to share your interpretation of the targets, the allegations, the implications, and the potential consequences. Because this is not a passive consumption moment. This is a participatory event. The culture does not move forward when the audience sits in silence. It advances when the audience engages, when they challenge, when they question, when they amplify the moments that deserve amplification. And this moment absolutely deserves amplification. Now, looking ahead, I want to offer some speculation about what the immediate future holds, because I think the ripple effects of this freestyle are going to be far more extensive than most people currently anticipate. First, the response question. Whoever Remy targeted with those ghostwriting allegations is going to be under immense pressure to address them publicly. The hip-hop community does not tolerate unanswered challenges from opponents of Remy's caliber. The longer the silence persists, the louder that silence becomes. And in the age of social media, where every minute without a response is cataloged and interpreted, the clock is already ticking. Second, the platform effect. On the Radar is going to experience a massive surge in visibility from this moment. Every major outlet is going to be covering this freestyle. Every reaction channel is going to be dissecting it. Every podcast is going to be debating it. And all of that attention funnels directly back to the platform, which further elevates their position as the premier proving ground for lyrical excellence. Chris Patrick built something extraordinary, and Remy just handed them a generational moment. Third, the industry recalibration. This freestyle is going to force a broader conversation about the current state of female lyricism in hip-hop. For too long, the discourse has been dominated by narratives that reduce female MCs to their aesthetics, their relationships, their controversies, anything except their actual musical ability. Remy just obliterated that reductive framing. She just demonstrated, in the most public and undeniable fashion possible, that the pen game of the finest female lyricists is not merely competitive with their male counterparts, but in many cases surpasses it. And that demonstration is going to reshape conversations about who gets taken seriously in this art form. Fourth, the collaboration implications. Every producer, every A-list artist, every label executive who heard this freestyle is now recalculating their relationship to Remy Ma. Because in the attention economy of hip-hop, the artist who just delivered the most discussed freestyle of the year is the artist that everybody wants on their record. The feature requests are going to flood in. The production offers are going to multiply. The opportunities that had perhaps been cooling are suddenly going to be reactivated with urgency. Because everyone wants to be associated with the moment. And Remy just created the biggest moment. Fifth, and this is the one I find most fascinating, the personal dynamics. Because embedded within this freestyle are layers of intimate knowledge that only someone with deep personal history could possess. The specificity of her references, the precision of her accusations, the confidence with which she delivers claims that would be legally perilous if they were fabricated, all of this suggests that she is operating from a position of informational advantage. She knows things. She possesses receipts. And the people in her crosshairs are fully aware that she possesses those receipts, which makes their strategic options even more constrained. This is going to unfold in stages. And each stage is going to be more revealing, more consequential, and more captivating than the last. We are witnessing the opening chapter of a narrative that is going to define this era of hip-hop commentary. And I, for one, am going to be documenting every single development as it materializes. So bookmark this. Subscribe if you have not. Enable every notification available because the velocity at which this story is going to evolve is going to be extraordinary. The responses will come. The revelations will surface. The alliances will shift. The truth, whatever it ultimately proves to be, will emerge. And when it does, I will be here to walk you through every dimension of it with the thoroughness and the honesty that this moment demands. Remy Ma just reminded the entire world who she is. She reminded us that she is not an artifact. She is not a nostalgia act. She is not a figure from a bygone era attempting to recapture relevance through proximity to trending platforms. She is the standard. She has always been the standard. And on the radar radio, in 2 minutes and 41 seconds of pure, unfiltered, uncompromising lyricism, she reestablished that standard with a force that will reverberate through this culture for a very, very long time. The Queen returned. The throne was never vacant. It was simply waiting for her to reclaim it publicly. And now that she has, every single person who aspired to occupy that seat in her absence needs to stand up, step aside, and acknowledge what they have always known but were reluctant to admit. There is only one Remy Ma. There has only ever been one Remy Ma. And after what she just unleashed, the probability that anyone emerges who can challenge that singular position has decreased from unlikely to mathematically impossible. The lyricism is back. The artistry is back. The standard is back. And the rest of the industry better recalibrate accordingly. Because the benchmark just moved, and it moved to a height that most of these artists cannot even perceive, let alone reach. This is what excellence sounds like. Remember it, study it, and hold every single artist who follows to the standard that Remy Ma just established. Because anything less, after what we just witnessed, is unacceptable. The culture demanded a statement. Remy Ma delivered a manifesto, and the reverberations are only beginning. And let me leave you with this final observation because it encapsulates everything we have discussed. There is a moment near the conclusion of the freestyle where Remy shifts her energy one final time. The aggression recedes slightly. The competitive fury gives way to something quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It is the energy of someone who has nothing left to prove, but chooses to prove it anyway. Not out of insecurity, not out of necessity, but out of an unshakable conviction that the art form deserves her absolute finest regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the platform, regardless of whether the world is watching or whether she is performing for an audience of one. That commitment to excellence, that refusal to offer anything less than her maximum capacity under any conditions, that is the attribute that separates the transcendent from the merely talented. Talent is common. Talent is distributed broadly across the population. What is rare, what is precious, what is irreplaceable is the combination of talent and an unwavering dedication to deploying that talent at its ceiling every single time the opportunity presents itself. Remy possesses that combination in an abundance that borders on the supernatural. And this freestyle is the latest and perhaps most compelling evidence of that reality. Drop your perspective in the comments. Let the community know where you are absorbing this from and what your immediate reaction was when you first experienced those bars. Because I am telling you, the conversations that emerge from this moment are going to be just as significant as the moment itself. And I want every single voice in this community represented in that dialogue. This is not the conclusion. This is the commencement. The story is just beginning to unfold. And the chapters that follow are going to be unlike anything we have witnessed in this generation of hip-hop. Stay locked, stay attentive, stay engaged, because the landscape just shifted beneath our collective feet, and the aftershocks are going to continue reverberating for a very, very long time. Until the next development surfaces, I appreciate every single one of you. Keep the discourse elevated, keep the standards high, and never, ever allow anyone to convince you that the art of lyricism is obsolete. Because Remy Ma just proved, with definitive and incontestable authority, that it is more vital, more powerful, and more necessary than it has ever been. I will see you when the next chapter reveals itself. And trust me, it will reveal itself sooner than anyone anticipates. Peace.